Before I begin, I just want to say, this story still lingers with me like the faint aroma of cinnamon after baking. It's about a dinner I'll never forget. A quiet evening that turned into something that changed the way I saw my own family, and maybe even myself. But before I tell you what happened, I'd love to know, where are you watching from tonight? Are you from the East Coast, maybe out in California, or somewhere in the middle, like me here in Missouri? Go ahead and tell me in the comments. I love hearing where everyone's tuning in from. And if you enjoy stories that touch the heart, well, maybe tap that subscribe button and give this video a like. It helps me know you're out there listening, and it keeps me sharing these little pieces of life with you. All right, let's begin. It was a Friday evening in early November, the kind where the air feels like it's holding its breath between autumn and winter. The sky outside my kitchen window was painted in bruised purples and orange streaks, fading into that soft dusk that makes you want to light a candle, pour some wine, and slow down. I was setting the dining table for dinner, just me, my daughter Laura, and her son, my grandson Sam. He's 12 now, though in my mind, he's still that wide-eyed toddler who used to hand me dandelions like they were roses. Dinner with them was a weekly ritual, one I clung to more than I ever admitted. My house had grown too quiet since my husband, Paul, passed away 3 years ago. He was the sort of man who whistled while he chopped vegetables, who'd pour too much olive oil into the pan and wink at me like he meant to. The silence after he was gone was a living thing. It settled in corners and wrapped around me at night. But when Laura and Sam came over, it felt like the walls remembered laughter. I'd made roast chicken that night, with rosemary and lemon, mashed potatoes whipped so light they could float, and green beans sautéed with almonds. Sam had a sweet tooth like his grandfather, so I baked an apple pie, letting it cool by the window just like my mother used to. When they arrived, Laura looked tired. She always did lately, with her job and the divorce papers still fresh. She gave me a quick hug, her perfume mixing with the scent of dinner, then disappeared into the kitchen to help plate things. Sam came in slower, his sneakers squeaking faintly on the hardwood. He was clutching a small, crumpled brown paper bag. "Hi, Grandma," he said, his voice caught somewhere between boy and teenager. "I made you something." Now, Sam was a quiet kid, not shy exactly, just thoughtful. The kind who observed more than he spoke. His teachers said he had an artist's mind, curious and gentle, always a few steps deeper in thought than most kids his age. "Well now, isn't that something?" I said, drying my hands on my apron. "You didn't have to bring me anything, sweetheart." He shrugged, eyes darting to the bag. "You'll see after dinner. It's kind of a surprise." That made me smile. I loved surprises, especially the kind made with small hands and big hearts. Dinner went on like it usually did, filled with easy conversation and the clinking of cutlery. Laura told stories about work, about her boss's terrible new haircut, about a coworker's upcoming wedding. I nodded, laughed when appropriate, but my attention kept drifting to Sam. He seemed distracted, picking at his food, his gaze flicking now and then to the brown paper bag sitting on the counter. "Everything all right, Sam?" I finally asked. He looked up quickly, cheeks coloring. "Yeah, Grandma. I can't wait for you to open your gift." Laura smiled at him. "He's been working on it all week," she said. "Wouldn't even let me peek." After dinner, as I cleared the plates, Sam disappeared into the living room. When I joined him, he was sitting on the couch, holding that little bag with both hands. The fire in the hearth was just starting to catch, its glow flickering across his face. "Okay," he said, standing up and handing it to me. "You can open it now." I took the bag carefully, feeling its weight, light but deliberate. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was a small wooden box, the kind you might find in a craft store, but this one had been carved and painted by hand. The edges were sanded smooth, the lid painted with a soft blue sky, and in the center, a single white bird in flight. "Oh, Sam," I said, my throat tightening. "This is beautiful." He grinned a little shyly. "Open it." Inside the box was a folded piece of paper. I'd opened it, and there, drawn in colored pencil, was a picture of my husband, Paul, sitting on the old porch swing with his arm around me. The details were astonishing. The plaid shirt Paul always wore when he worked in the garden, the mug of coffee in his other hand, the ivy climbing the porch railings. My own face looked younger, softer, just as I remembered us in those days. I didn't realize I was crying until Sam looked up at me, worried. "Grandma, did I do it wrong?" he asked. I shook my head quickly, brushing my tears away. "No, honey, you did it just right. It's perfect." Laura walked in, drying her hands on a towel. "Oh," she said softly, seeing the picture. "He told me he wanted to draw something special for you. Said he had a dream about Grandpa helping him." That made me pause. "A dream?" Sam nodded. "Yeah, he was in the garden. He said I should draw that day, the one when he planted the sunflowers. He said it would make you smile again." The room went quiet then. Even the fire seemed to hush, the only sound the faint pop of a burning log. My heart ached in the most beautiful way, like grief and love had decided to sit side by side for a moment. I reached for Sam's hand, small and warm. "You know something, sweetheart? I think your grandpa was right. You did make me smile again." He smiled back, and for the first time in months, I felt something shift inside me. A small, steady warmth, like a window had opened after a long winter. As the night went on, we talked more about Paul, about his silly jokes, his garden, the time he burned the Thanksgiving turkey, but pretended it was smoked on purpose. Sam listened like every story was a treasure, and when they finally left, I sat alone in the soft glow of the fire, the little wooden box in my lap. I don't know what it was exactly, faith, memory, or something beyond both, but in that quiet, I felt Paul there. Not as a ghost, but as a whisper, a presence wrapped in the laughter of our family, the scent of rosemary and apples, the steady heartbeat of love that refuses to fade. And that night, for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. You know, before I go on, I have to say, so many of you shared where you're watching from last time, and it warmed my heart. I saw comments from Texas, Ohio, Florida, even someone from a quiet little town in Vermont. It means more than you know. If you're joining us again tonight, tell me where you're watching from this time. And if you're new, welcome. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you like stories that remind you how powerful love and family can be. Now, let's pick up where we left off. After that dinner, something inside me felt different. I'd gone to bed that night with the little wooden box on my bedside table, the candle flickering low, casting shadows that seemed to dance across the painted bird on the lid. I must have woken 3 times just to look at it again, tracing the soft lines of Sam's drawing, whispering a thank you to the empty room. The next morning, I made my coffee the way Paul used to, 1 sugar, no cream, and stood by the kitchen window, watching the sun rise over the bare trees. There was frost clinging to the grass, silver and brittle. I thought about what Sam had said, about his dream of Paul in the garden. Now, I'd never been the kind of woman to talk about signs or spirits. I grew up believing that life was what you could touch and see. But there was something about that drawing, something about the way Sam described Paul's voice. It didn't feel like a child's imagination. It felt personal. Later that day, Laura called. She sounded hurried, her voice echoing through what I guessed was her car speaker. "Mom, listen. Sam's been asking if he can come stay with you this weekend. I've got a work trip, and he said he wanted to help you in the garden." I looked out the window again. The garden had gone wild since Paul died. Overgrown lavender bushes, weeds creeping where flowers used to bloom. "Of course," I said. "I'd love to have him." When Sam arrived that Friday afternoon, He was wearing his old green jacket and carrying his sketchbook under his arm. His eyes lit up when he saw me. "Grandma," he said, "I think we should plant sunflowers again, like you and Grandpa did." My heart gave a little ache at that. "In November?" I asked, teasing gently. He grinned. "Well, maybe not today, but we can get the garden ready, so it feels like him again." So we did. The two of us spent the afternoon in the chill air, pulling weeds, cutting back dead stems, and talking about Paul. I told him how his grandfather used to hum old jazz songs while planting tomatoes, how he swore the secret to a good garden was talking to the plants. Sam listened like every word mattered. He asked questions I didn't expect, about when Paul and I first met, about what it felt like to grow old together. At one point, he stopped and looked up at me, his gloves streaked with dirt. "Grandma," he said softly, "did Grandpa ever keep secrets from you?" The question caught me off guard. Secrets? What makes you ask that, sweetheart? He hesitated. I just found something. In his old toolbox. I felt a flicker of curiosity, and something else, a twinge of unease. "What did you find?" He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. The edges were yellowed, the ink faint. This was in an envelope. It said, "For Mary, when the time is right." I didn't open it at first, but then I thought maybe you should see it. I took it from him slowly. My hands trembled just a little. The handwriting was unmistakable, Paul's looping script, confident and familiar. "Sam," I said gently, "you were right to bring this to me." We sat together on the porch steps. The air smelled faintly of wood smoke, and the last of the daylight was slipping behind the trees. I'd opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper and an old photograph. The picture showed Paul standing beside a woman I didn't recognize. She was younger, with dark hair, smiling shyly at the camera. Paul's arm was around her shoulders. The letter beneath it began in his handwriting. "My dearest Mary, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And there's something I never told you, something I wanted to, but never found the right time. Before you, before our life together, there was someone else. Her name was Anna." I stopped reading. My breath caught in my throat. Sam's eyes were wide, uncertain. "Grandma? What does it say?" I couldn't answer right away. The words felt heavy, like stones in my chest. I took a deep breath and kept reading. "She and I met long before you, back when I was just a foolish young man trying to find his place in the world. She was kind and strong and helped me when I didn't deserve it. We were close for a while, but life took us different ways. When I met you, I knew you were the one I was meant to build my life with. I never wanted to burden you with old stories. But if this letter finds you, I want you to know that she reached out once, years later. She was sick. She asked for forgiveness, and I gave it. That's all. I just needed you to know the truth, because love shouldn't leave shadows behind." There was no signature, just his familiar, looping initial, P. I sat there for a long time, staring at the letter, the edges fluttering in the cold breeze. Sam rested his hand on mine. "Did Grandpa do something bad?" he asked quietly. I shook my head. "No, sweetheart. He was just human. We all have pieces of our past that don't fit neatly into the stories we tell." Inside, I made us both some cocoa. Sam went back to drawing, quietly sketching the garden while I sat at the table, the letter beside me. I looked at Paul's picture again, the young version of him smiling, alive, unaware of the life he'd yet to live. For the first time, I wondered how many stories we carry inside us that never get told, how many truths we tuck away, thinking we're protecting someone. When I finally looked up, Sam was asleep on the couch, his sketchbook open beside him. On the page was a drawing, not of the garden, but of me. He'd drawn me sitting on the porch, the letter in my hand, and behind me, faintly sketched, Paul standing in the light, watching over us. And I swear in that moment I felt something lift. Not sorrow, not anger, just understanding, the kind that settles deep in your bones. Later that night, before I went to bed, I placed Paul's letter inside the wooden box Sam had made for me. I closed the lid gently, tracing the white bird again, and I'd whispered, "I forgive you, Paul, for what you didn't say." I didn't know then that this was only the beginning, that Sam's discovery would open a door neither of us expected, a door that would lead us to a truth that had been waiting quietly for decades. Before we continue, I just want to pause for a moment and say how much I've loved reading your comments. So many of you shared your own stories about family, love, and those moments that make you stop and think about the past a little differently. It's incredible how connected we all are through memories. So if you're just joining in, let me know where you're watching from tonight. I love picturing all of you across the country, maybe sitting with a cup of tea or tucked under a blanket. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe and like the video. It helps keep these stories coming, and honestly, it means the world to me. Now, let's get back to that night and what followed. The morning after I found Paul's letter, the world seemed quieter somehow, as if the house itself was holding its breath. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, the letter folded neatly beside the sugar jar. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that woman's face, the one from the photograph. Who was she really? What did she mean to him? And why had he saved that picture all these years? Sam woke up late, still groggy, his hair sticking up in every direction. "Morning, Grandma," he mumbled. "Did you read the whole letter again?" I smiled faintly. "You know me too well." He plopped into the chair across from me. "What are you going to do about it?" That was the question, wasn't it? What do you do with a secret that can't be asked about anymore? I said slowly, I need to find out who she was. Anna. Sam nodded thoughtfully, like a little detective in training. "Can I help?" I hesitated. I didn't want to drag him into something painful, but then again, he was the one who'd found the letter. "All right," I said, "but we take it slow." We started by going through Paul's old boxes in the attic. The air up there was cool and dusty, filled with the scent of cardboard and old books. Sunlight filtered through the small round window, cutting across floating dust motes like tiny stars. Sam sneezed every few minutes, which made me laugh despite myself. There were boxes of photographs, receipts, letters from Paul's army days, even old tools that looked too rusted to name. For a while, we found nothing. Then, at the bottom of one box, I spotted a small leather-bound notebook. The edges were worn, the cover soft from years of use. Inside were pages of Paul's handwriting, notes, dates, sketches of his garden plans, but about halfway through, the writing changed tone. The entries became more personal. June 12, 1978. Saw Anna today. Didn't expect it. She looked well. Said she was living out near Springfield. Hard to see her and not feel the old ache. But I know where my life belongs, with Mary. She's my home now. My heart thudded as I read the lines aloud. Sam leaned in close, eyes wide. "Springfield," he said. "That's not far, right?" "No," I murmured. "Just 2 hours south." I closed the notebook gently. The thought that this woman, Anna, had once been near us, maybe even visited, made something stir deep inside me. Not jealousy, exactly. More like curiosity mixed with an ache I couldn't name. For the rest of that day, I couldn't stop thinking about her. What had become of her? Was she still alive back then when Paul wrote that letter? Did she ever know that he kept her photograph? That night, after Sam went to bed, I sat by the fire with the wooden box in my lap again. The crackle of the flames was soft and rhythmic. I'd opened the lid and looked at Paul's letter once more, then at the photograph. Something about the woman's eyes struck me differently this time. There was kindness in them, but also a hint of sorrow, like she was carrying her own quiet burden. I whispered to the empty room, "Who were you, Anna?" The next day, I decided to take a drive. Laura had already picked up Sam, and I didn't tell her much about what I was doing. I just said I needed some time to think. The drive to Springfield was long but familiar. The fields along the highway were pale gold, stripped bare after the harvest. Every few miles, I'd pass an old barn leaning tiredly against the sky. Paul and I had driven this route years ago, back when he'd take me to flea markets and roadside diners just to make me laugh. When I arrived, I parked near the public library, an old red brick building with white columns and creaky wooden floors. Inside, it smelled of dust, paper, and faint lemon polish. I went to the archives desk, explained I was researching someone named Anna who might have lived there in the late 70s. The woman behind the counter, a friendly librarian with gray curls, smiled kindly. "Do you happen to know her last name?" she asked. I hesitated. No, just Anna. She might have known a man named Paul McKinley. Her eyes flickered with recognition. McKinley? We had a McKinley family here years ago. Let me check something. She disappeared into a back room, and I stood there, heart hammering. When she returned, she was holding a thin local newspaper clipping, yellowed and fragile. It was dated August 1984. The headline read, "Local woman passes after battle with illness." Her name was Anna Whitfield. The photo in the article made my breath catch. It was her, the same woman from the picture. The article was short, just a few paragraphs about her teaching art at the local school, how she was remembered by friends for her warmth and her kindness. But it was the last line that stopped me cold. She is survived by her young daughter, born in 1979. I stared at those words, my pulse thudding in my ears. A daughter. On the drive home, I couldn't stop thinking. The timing, the secrecy, the letter. Everything began to twist together in my mind like a storm I couldn't quite see through. When I got home, the house felt different, charged, expectant. I sat down with the clipping and Paul's letter laid side by side. The words blurred a little through my tears. Before you, there was someone else. It wasn't just a confession. It was a piece of unfinished business, a thread left hanging in our story. That night, I dreamed of the garden again, the sunflowers swaying, Paul's voice faint but clear. "There's more, Mary. It's time to know." When I woke up, the dawnlight was soft against the curtains, and I knew what I had to do. I had to find that daughter. Not for answers. Not out of anger, but because love, real love, deserves to be complete, even if it takes a lifetime to uncover. Before we begin the last part of this story, I just want to thank you all for staying with me through it. It's been amazing hearing from so many of you. Folks from Oregon, Michigan, the Carolinas, even a few from right here in Missouri, where I live. If you've been following along since the first chapter, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Make yourself comfortable. Grab a cup of something warm, settle in, and don't forget to subscribe and like the video if you'd like more stories like this one. This last part, well, it's close to my heart. It's about finding peace where you least expect it. After discovering that clipping, I couldn't think about anything else. I kept turning those words over in my mind, survived by her young daughter. It played like a whisper through the house, in every quiet space Paul used to fill. I waited a few days before acting. I don't know why. Maybe I was afraid of what I might find. Maybe I needed to let the truth settle first. On the fourth morning, I called the Springfield Library again, spoke to the same kind woman who'd helped me before. She said, "I did a bit more digging, Mrs. McKinley. Anna's daughter was named Claire. Looks like she stayed in the area for a while. There's a record of her teaching at an elementary school about 10 years ago. Claire Whitfield? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. That's right. Want me to see if she's still around? I hesitated for just a second, then said, yes, please. A few hours later, the librarian called back. Found a recent listing. She's in Oak Ridge, only an hour from Springfield. I can give you the public directory number. After I hung up, I sat there staring at the phone. The idea of calling her made my hands shake. What would I even say? Hello, I'm Mary. I think my late husband might have known your mother in a way I never understood. But I couldn't ignore it anymore, so I dialed. A woman answered after 2 rings, her voice calm but guarded. Hello. Hello, dear, I said softly. My name is Mary McKinley. I